James Patterson is here since 1993. He has written 14 best-selling novels. His most recent is called The Lake House. I am pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, here's what I want to get at first, before we talk about The Lake House. Forbes magazine says you make $50 million a year.
But here's the funny thing. Right. Forbes says 50, Wall Street Journal says 25.
Yes.
Now, these are two reputable business
So what does that say to you about business journalism?
Oh, you know the stories. You've read them. You've read them about yourself.
So 50 million, and here's your schedule.
Or
and think about this, America. Or 25, exactly. At the low end, it's 25. At the high end, it's double that, 50. The other question is, how many books do you write a year?
For the last couple of years, it's been 3. As you know, occasionally I'll write with a conspirator, collaborator. But that's the schedule right now. I just signed up to do a children's book. I have a 5-year-old, so it'll be 4 one of these years.
So at this point, you're not writing for the money.
No, well, the money's nice, but I love to do it. I really like to do it, and you know, I don't feel pressure. Some writers also are into this. I'm number one. I have to beat last sales. Whatever. I don't care. I mean, I want the books to do well. I want them to be read, but I don't feel pressure. You know, what happened in the last book or the next book.
Did you stay in advertising longer than you had to?
Advertising. I've been clean for 8 years now, and yeah, I don't know. Probably. I guess it was crotch. I don't know what it was. I guess I probably should have left before I did. It's been a while now.
How do you explain this?
I like this life better, a lot better, much nicer.
Why?
How do I explain the success?
No. Why do you like this life better?
Because I love
to write.
I love to write, and I don't really have any bosses. It's pretty much, I mean, within reason, it's what I want to do now. And this new book is sort of Stephen King-ish, and which it's nice. I obviously have the mysteries with Alex Cross. I did a love story. I have a children's, so, as long as the story, appeals to the publisher, they'll pretty much let me do what I want to do.
Is Morgan Freeman Alex Cross in your mind?
No, well, yeah, he's the movie Alex Cross.
Right.
He's a movie. Tell you, such a weird thing about the movies and the TV. I go on this press junket for Along Came a Spider, which is kind of, it's interesting. Like for the books, you can't, I mean, you're wonderful with writers. You have them on frequently, but for the most part, you don't get to see too many journalists. Movie, I don't care what it is, the stupidest movie in the history of mankind, and here are like 70, at these press junkets. So I go to the press junket and I get to see the movie. Paramount shows me Along Came a Spider before because they want me to, and so I'm looking at the movie and I see the first scene and I go, gee, that wasn't in the book, which is okay, I don't care. Second scene, they have Morgan or Alex and he's putting a ship in a bottle. And I go, well, it doesn't seem all that cinematic, but whatever. And then this woman comes in. And I'm going, who is that woman in the second scene, And I'm going, it's not Alex's grandmother, and it's not his little girl. I don't know who the hell she is. And then she never shows up again in the movie. So I see Morgan Freeman a little later in the day, and I say, Morgan, who is that woman in the second scene? And he goes, oh, that's Alex Cross's sister. And I said, I didn't know Alex had a sister. So, whatever happens, happens. It's fine.
But it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, look, Morgan's great. He's a very, I don't know if you've had him on. He's wonderful. He's very entertaining. Yeah, very smart guy and a wonderful actor. When I watched him act, he is so confident. You just see him in the scene, and whoever he's with, even some very good people, he's floating, and he's confident. He knows he's going to knock the scene dead. I feel very confident that I can write a good pot boiler. I feel very, very confident.
What do you know
about this kind of book?
In other words, you feel
I have a style. I have a unique style with these. It's not just short chapters. Anybody can write short chapters. They're short chapters that just fire the plot forward, and something is happening. Whether it's charactered, something major is happening in every chapter. So that's a piece of it. Secondly, I think for suspense, the good fun stuff, it's questions that the reader or the movie watcher must have answered, and you must keep them in front of.
Well, you must pose them first before you answer.
They got to be posed, and the reader must care. It's like, I got to know, you know. I got to know and if you can keep that in front of them, then they just keep turning the pages. So that, you know, that's a piece of it. That's a piece of it.
How much of it is literary skill?
I don't know where the art and artifice and all that, I don't know where that crosses. I think there's an art here to doing some of this. I think the storytelling is good. The writing is okay.
Yeah.
I want to reach a lot of people, so I mean, I could write it with more style, and I choose not to put too much style. You know, in a way,
because if you put too much style in it, it might have a negative effect.
Slow it down. I just slow it down. This is, you know, what I'm doing. It's very much like a colloquial storytelling style, and you know, we're telling stories to one another. We tend not to put a lot of superfluous. We tend not to go off in tangents because the person we're talking to would tend to just say, get to, you know, what's the punchline? You know, right. So it's more of that kind of storytelling.
But you have said that some of the sentences that you wrote in your first one is as good as any sentences you've ever written.
Yeah, I think that book had some good writing in it. I don't think it's a real super story. Yeah. I think it's an okay story.
But the sentence, the structure, and all that stuff was as good.
Structure was interesting, complex structure. Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
The Lake House. I wrote a book called When the Wind Blows 4 or 5 years ago. It happens to be the biggest selling book that I have. The second biggest is The Love Story, which is kind of where people think of me more as a mystery. This is a little.
Second biggest is The Love Story?
Yeah. Yeah. Suzanne's Diary for Nicholas.
Wow. What does that tell you?
That tells you that book really struck a chord. I'll tell you a quick story about Suzanne's Diary. I was on tour. The first day that I went on tour, and I was in Alabama, Birmingham, and I was on a TV show, and the host said, "Let me tell you a story, James." He said the night before he had given Suzanne's Diary to his wife to read, and she was still reading, and he went off to bed. At 2:30 in the morning, she woke him up, apologized, and said, "I'm sorry, but I just finished this book. I had to hug you and tell you how much I loved you." And I've had that come back to me, that kind of thing, 5,000 times. Right. I just had one where this man, the priest wrote, and his father had just died, and he knew he was dying, and he wanted to read this book again. And he was on like page 20. They brought the book to the funeral service. I mean, you know. So, yeah.
So what was it about Suzanne's Diary? Is it so?
It's a much more personal book for me. I have a little boy, and it's a mother's diary for her infant son, and yeah, it's a touching. It's a little over the top, but it's a nice story.
What does that mean, over the top, in this case?
Operatic, melodramatic.
So you just stoked the fires.
Yeah.
So why didn't you try it again?
I am writing another. It's different. I didn't want to just, because it worked, let's do another one. There was another story, though, where I felt there was a core of truth. I like to work around a core of truth. In the Cross books, the Cross family is the truth of the books. What surrounds them,
their relationship, their values,
the whole ball of wax. And they are in the middle of all of this, sometimes bad stuff, but they hold together. And I grew up with a family like that took care of me a lot, and black family in Newburgh, New York. So they're the core of that. In this book, this is about, Lake House is about sort of the two-edged sword of science, and in particular biotechnology. It sounds crazy, but I tend to ground stuff in reality. But there is a little girl in this book who can fly, and people who like they're addicted to the.
Fly like Superman can fly.
Yeah, or Peter Pan, or whatever. Spider-Man, or yeah, but it's not comic. I'm not knocking or praising comic books, but it's not that style. It's more of a realistic.
Where is the bio
story? Well, that's how it happens. That's how these
some kind of genetic engineer gave them the capacity.
Gave them the capacity for reasons to be learned by reading the book. The interesting thing for me is when I researched, originally When the Wind Blows, every doctor, every scientist I spoke to said that stuff like this will happen in our lifetime. Not necessarily children with wings, but things that will blow our minds. That biotechnology, what's going to happen in the next 20 years is just stunning.
Whenever we do stories about, you know, the revolution in the mapping of the human genome, you know, people, because it answers so many, it has the capacity to unlock so many
mysteries, yeah. Things that we need to understand, or that we'd like to understand.
I mean, it really is unlocking the human, you know, what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just extraordinary. And for guys like you, I would think it is just a gold mine of what you can do.
Well, I love the things about this book, and that's one of them. And it is that double-edged sword of science, where on the one hand, it's all the potential that you could hope for. On the other hand, it's a little scary, because we see what happens with great things in this society. I mean, you know, nuclear energy. I mean, it can be very wonderful, or it can be trouble.
And so what do you say to young people who want to be James Patterson, who want to write?
Well, it's really a mixed bag. What do you want to write? I think that if you really love it, you can't help it. You're just going to have to. I mean, it really depends. If you're going to write serious stuff, that's a whole different thing. If you want to write commercial stuff, I think, you know, rules of real estate, location, the rules of commercial fiction, story.
Yeah.
Get a good story, and then just tell your story, you know.
The book is called The Lake House. James Patterson, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great to see you
Nice
again.
to see you again.
Continued success.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.